Dear participants, welcome. My name is Raki Gassama from the Secretariat of the Association for the Development of Education in Africa, ADEA, and I will be your moderator for this virtual colloquium. Please note that interpretation is available in English and French, so you can click on the globe icon to select your preferred language. Chers participants, bonjour. Je m'appelle Raki Gassama et je suis au sein du secrétariat de l'ADEA, l'Association pour le développement de l'éducation en Afrique. Je serai votre modératrice pour ce colloque virtuel. Veuillez noter que l'interprétation en anglais et en français est disponible. Donc, il vous suffit simplement de cliquer sur l'icône en forme de globe et de choisir votre langue préférée. So you can also use the virtual chat in order to send comments, observation, or questions. We will not be able to respond to all of them, but we will make sure to take them into account. So welcome all to this virtual colloquium organized by ADEA in collaboration with Festo Didactic on the use of innovative digital technology to support access and quality of technical and vocational education in training that includes skills development. So during this 2-hour session, we will share effective solutions and best practices on innovative tools and opportunities that our African youth can use in order to prepare for their future work. So we are always referring to the fourth industrial revolution and the 2.0 generation. So let's make it a reality within our education and training systems based on our economic and social context. So I am now pleased to invite the Executive Secretary of ADEA, Mr. Albert Nzengi-Yumva, to give welcome remarks and a brief introduction to this meeting. Albert, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Raki, as the moderator. Let me, first of all, start by welcoming all the participants to this event. Particularly, I will start with ministers that have managed to take part of their busy schedule to join us. I must acknowledge, for example, the Minister of State for Rwanda. We're still waiting for the Ministers of State for Angola, and the representative from Tunisia, who's going to join us, and the representative from Ivory Coast. But in addition to that, let me also welcome Festo Didactic as our partner in organizing this event. Thank you, Festo, for your time and the investment to make this colloquium a reality. I know we've been really interacting for some time, and this is actually one in a number of series of colloquium that we'll be organizing as we lead to the dialogue forum on digitalization at TVET next year, hopefully when things get back to normal. So why is it important to talk about digitalization at TVET? I think that's really the key issue that we need to discuss today. I remember last year in South Africa, in July, we had a meeting, a high-level policy dialogue on secondary education in Africa, following the report commissioned by Mastercard Foundation, known as Reimagining Secondary Education in Africa. So I would like at this point actually to say we can say the same for TVET or TVSD. I think Africa needs to reimagine technical vocational skills development in the way we did for secondary education, for a number of reasons, at least a few of them. I think based on the reports from the Mastercard Foundation, it is clear that the reforms that are required for secondary education will inform technical vocational skill development as well. Because basically we are moving away from theoretical knowledges to more competency skills, because that's what the labor market is looking for. Number two, it is important to reimagine technical vocational secondary school because the labor market, which represents the demand, is changing, is transforming. Technology is actually driving the new era of businesses and companies. So it's so important we try as much as possible to adapt our technical vocational skill development accordingly. And it is so important to acknowledge that technology is playing an important role in our lives today. There's no way Africa can be left behind. It is therefore important that today we reflect on the changes, on investment, on transformation, to make sure that we reimagine technical vocational skill development as per the era of digitalization and more globally, the fourth industrial revolution. And there are three important aspects that we need to consider, particularly in the context of Africa. The first, that I will come back again later, the issue of access, equity and inclusion, how technology can support them. Because when I will show the statistics, the numbers are still very low. And this actually called for a rethink of how to deliver technical vocational skill development beyond the classroom models. How do we use technology so people can access and be able to apply wherever they are in terms of learning, in terms of improving their skills? Secondly is the quality. The quality aspect is so important. We need to make sure that our trainers are actually able to upgrade their skills, integrate soft and digital skills in order to cope with the demand of today. And more importantly, we need to go back and make sure that our trainees are exposed to the new way of doing business, new way of production, and so on and so forth. And I'm sure our partners will come back on that later during this event. So let me again welcome you to this meeting, and I would like to call upon the representative of the African Development Bank, Madam Marta Viri. Could you just come in and help to open officially this event? The floor is yours, Marta.
Thank you very much. Honorable ministers, development partners, private sector representatives, civil society representatives, of course, my colleague and dear brother, the Secretary of ADEA, Mr. Albert Sengiyumva, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good day to you all. Let me start by conveying sincere apologies from the acting Vice President Gichuri, who could not be here with us due to an emerging priority that needs her urgent attention. She sends her very best wishes to you all for a successful exchange on the relevant theme of use of innovative digital technologies in delivering technical and vocational education and training. So I'm very delighted and feel greatly honored to deliver these remarks on her behalf. Ladies and gentlemen, we are living in unprecedented times. We're in the midst of a global health pandemic as we speak, the size and impact of which we have not seen in modern history. Yet here we are, most of us under different regimes of lockdowns, working from home, some of us, and yet having a real-time conversation. It is very clear that without technological innovation, we could not have seen this meeting possible. However, for most of our people in Africa, including learners, our children, in TVET colleges, in universities, and the rest of them, this reality remains but a dream. While some progress has been made on the continent in various fronts in terms of digital innovation, but when we look at electricity connectivity, internet penetration, access to relevant digital devices at a minimum, the regulatory environment itself for the development of appropriate content, as well as affordability, among others, these issues on average are the lowest when you compare global regions. This means that e-learning, as we envision it, and as we have seen during the lockdown, teleworking, in fact, telemedicine even, continue to be very limited for our people. This conversation, therefore, could not have happened at a better time. In recognizing the role of TVET in providing the relevant skills for the labor market, the bank is rising to the challenge. That's why we're very excited to be part of this conversation. Over the past 5 years, the bank has committed over $180 million into TVET and higher education. This represents nearly 35% share of total investment in skills development and education on the continent. Under these programs, the construction and rehabilitation of 4,000 education facilities have equipped nearly 1.7 million people with relevant skills. This is why it gives me great pleasure to share with you the other issues that we have that provides or responds to the conversation that we are having today. But the bank also recognizes the importance of harnessing partnerships with key players in this space, so as to make the needed strides in the development of relevant skills to help our young people find quality jobs, or indeed create jobs for themselves and others. In February this year, we were very excited to partner with ADEA to organize a TVET validation workshop on industrial linkages for inclusive development. As I recall, the workshop brought together more than 50 participants representing 13 governments, 14 international organizations, regional economic communities, academia, and the private sector to share preliminary findings of the bank's TVET scoping study. As you know, Chairperson, ladies and gentlemen, our reforms, our investments in innovation need to be informed by studies and analysis. They have to be evidence-based. That is why this scoping study for us is very important as we move ahead. Now we are working together with everybody involved in that partnership to finalize the mapping study in 16 African countries, whose findings we believe will inform our investments and interventions in TVET and skills. We do also recognize that we need to do more to link the youth to innovative technologies while harnessing their entrepreneurship skills. We shouldn't just train our youth to get employed. We have to create an opportunity for them to create jobs for themselves as well as others. The bank's Coding for Employment flagship program is under implementation as we speak to equip the youth across Africa with the skills needed for the fourth industrial revolution, the subject of which is part of what we're discussing today. For its pilot phase, which started in 2018, the program has identified 14 host institutions, both TVET and universities, for the centers of excellence, trained 400 instructors, about 40% of whom are women, so that they can deliver the basic ICT skills and core employability skills curriculum. Since September 2018, the program has trained 93,000 on site in our centers based in Kenya, Nigeria, Rwanda, Senegal, and Ivory Coast, and 73,000 online through the bank's online portal. The program is in the process of scaling its reach to 7 additional ECOWAS countries in West Africa, and will catalyze about $100 million. So we're very excited about this. Now, moving forward to guide its intervention in regional member countries and respond to their needs in TVET and skills development in general, the bank is currently developing a skills for employability strategy for period 2021 to 2025. We will be coming back to all partners around this table to validate the appropriateness of the strategic pillars, as well as the relevance, particularly as it relates to particularly as it relates to innovation in TVET. Reflecting on the agenda ahead of us today, I was very pleased to note that the 5 fundamental and pertinent questions that will be discussed during this meeting are not only timely, but very, very relevant for our people on the continent, as well as the bank's strategic orientation on skills for employability strategy. As I conclude, let me thank ADEA and their collaborating partner, Festo, for organizing this important exchange on a very relevant topic. Such events, in our view at the bank, continue to demonstrate ADEA's relevance in this space. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Albert Nzengiyumva and Mrs. Martha Firi for setting the tones of this colloquium and also giving us hope through the support of AFDB to regional member countries in this area. So now I have the pleasure to invite a co-organizer, Festo Didactic, represented by Dr. Nader Imani, the Executive Vice President for Global Education Project, in order to give keynote address. Thank you. Dr. Imani?
Thank you, Raki. Merci beaucoup, Ces Excellences, les ministres, les experts en charge de l'éducation des pays invités, cher Albert, chère Madame Firi, Mesdames et Messieurs. Nous constatons tous que la crise sanitaire actuelle, des millions d'élèves restent à ce jour hors éducation. Cela laissera certainement des séquelles socio-économiques que nous voulons tous éviter en agissant ensemble. C'est alors unique que nous nous sentons en Afrique et dans le monde pour travailler sur des solutions viables. Celles qui marcheront en Afrique seront celles qui marcheront dans le monde et vice-versa. C'est dans ce contexte que la numérisation de l'éducation et la digitalisation des contenus éducatifs prend tout son sens. La transformation numérique de ces formes les plus conventionnelles comme des outils numériques pour communication et apprentissage et formation, en sorte comme celui que nous sommes en train d'utiliser actuellement, jusqu'à l'application de l'intelligence artificielle au service de l'enseignant et de l'enseignement, en passant par les systèmes de gestion d'apprentissage favorisant un apprentissage à tout moment et en tout lieu, deviennent alors le standard à considérer dans toute forme d'éducation du temps moderne. Celles qui nous accompagnent déjà et que accompagneront dans les années à venir. Mais qu'est-ce que cela veut dire pour nous? Nous, les intervenants d'une éducation adéquate pour rendre notre monde plus résilient dans son devenir. Nous, les technocrates des ministères, les directeurs des écoles, les enseignants, les producteurs de systèmes didactiques et pédagogiques et surtout, nous, les élèves et les étudiants que nous sommes et resterons tout au long de notre vie. Mais aussi, qu'est-ce que cela veut dire dans un contexte de formation professionnelle et technique, transformant vraiment la connaissance en compétences pour exercer un métier et embaucher d'autres à en exercer. C'est bien de cela qu'il s'agit, de voir dans quelle mesure nous pouvons, dans un esprit collaboratif, résoudre des défis que nous faisons face, rendre la formation professionnelle et technique plus numérique, plus digitale, la rendant plus significative et plus accessible, permettant à chacune et à chacun l'acquisition d'un travail et une perspective dans notre avenir. Je suis heureux d'avoir organisé ce colloque avec ADEA et continuer à apprendre ce qui se pratique de mieux dans ce domaine et de nos jours, ce jour ensemble avec vous. Merci et je vous espère un bon colloque d'apprentissage et retour à vous, cher Albert.
Merci beaucoup, Dr. Imani, d'avoir partagé l'importance de la collaboration et l'importance de l'utilisation également de la technologie pour que nous puissions faire face dans nos pays à tous les défis. Merci beaucoup. So I will go back again to our Executive Secretary of ADEA, Mr. Albert Nzengi-Yumva, because ADEA also have elaborated a research study on the demand and supply side of technical and vocational skills development. So Mr. Albert will give an overview of this research study. And I would like also to thank all our partners and also our resource persons who support us in this process. Thank you, Mr. Albert, it's your turn.
Thank you, Raki. I'm going to go quickly through the initial findings. Let me start by giving a background of this. As we prepare for the high-level policy dialogue forum on digitalization or the fourth industrial revolution and TVET or TVSD for next year, ADEA has commissioned a number of studies, particularly a study on the supply side and the other one on the demand side, to see how training providers, but also companies are dealing with the changes that are taking place associated with the new era of digitalization. Of course, it was very important to start with understanding the current situation of TVET in most of African countries, and therefore come up with new practices, innovative practices that we can actually be able to share through peer learning and knowledge exchange. So going through this quickly, the presentation, let me start by a general status of TVET in Africa, some of the things that we learned out of this. It is important to note that only 6% of the total secondary and post-secondary enrollment are actually according to TVET institutions. So we're still having a long way to go to make sure that we increase the enrollment in TVET in many sub-Saharan African countries. So there's so much to do. When you look at the next one, actually, you see when we look at female, for example, we are still lagging behind. So there's a lot to do to make sure that we increase enrollment. And this is something that has to do with the required investment in terms of infrastructure, in terms of trainers, in terms of equipment and other things that need to be in place for one to be able to raise enrollment. Again, this is where we see technology be so important. As I said during my introduction, technology can help to address some of these issues associated with access to TVET. We are also lagging behind in terms of training the TVET trainers, not only in terms of technical skills, but pedagogic and soft skills. So there's still so much to do in this particular area. More generally, we found that in many countries, we are lacking structures, standards in place to facilitate what we said a pathway, both vertical and horizontal. There's still a number of countries where we cannot even see the difference between the technical and vocational, while other countries, they've managed to integrate and come up with a clear TVET structure or system in place. There's still a challenge around career guidance. We know it's so important. It's one thing to make sure that TVET allowed to graduate qualified trainees, but it's another thing to make sure they are actually being guided in terms of potential opportunities for jobs. So really, this is something very critical that we feel need to happen. There's still a perception of TVET, because in many places they find TVET is meant for academic failures and therefore inferior to academia. And yet, this is where we can create more jobs, as many studies have shown. In the survey, it was clear that most of countries are looking for innovative solutions. And probably that is associated with the challenges of delivering TVET during the COVID-19. Unlike other level of education, TVET was really lagging behind just because of the complexity associated with delivering TVET around this time. Just to illustrate the issue of statistics, the issue of access. When you see a number of selected countries, you can tell the numbers are still very low. When you look at the population of the country and the number of TVET students, you can tell we are still really lagging behind. So it's hard to rethink approaches to increase access. If we continue going the same route of building infrastructure and equipment, I don't think it may take a number of years for that to happen. So they really need to rethink how best we can increase access by using technology. And this is something that we'll definitely be following up as time goes. As far as the use of digital technology is concerned, there are a number of challenges. Of course, for one to be able to acquire digital skills, there's a need to make sure that connectivity and other infrastructures are in place. So we are picking an example. Of course, we can still rely on the increase of mobile penetration that is happening in many countries. I think mobile is going to be one of the devices, including connectivity, that can help to increase access and the use of learning materials to facilitate the skills development. Of course, other challenges are associated with the financial constraint. There are limited investment in ICT infrastructure, as I said. We are also still lacking qualified staff, expertise, and the need to acquire new knowledge, and weak understanding of the fourth industrial revolution. This is an interesting slide that we found. It was actually prepared by the World Bank and from LinkedIn as well. It shows something very interesting. When you look at digital literacy, you find most of countries have managed to address it. But in the same time, some advanced skills like graphic design, computer networking, technical support that are so important as countries are trying to expand access to remote areas. There's definitely a need to have technical skills to be able to maintain computer networks, to provide technical support, but more importantly, the graphic design that can facilitate even in developing learning management system and others. So there's really a decline on that side, while on the digital literacy, there are a lot of efforts, there's really a clear progress going on. In terms of conclusion, indeed, there is a really important need to make sure that we reposition TVET and make sure that TVET focus on the demand, addressing the demand in the labor market. And this is called for a collaboration between private sector and training providers so that training providers can be able to address the skills gap that we see in the labor market. We also acknowledge that there are very few countries that have a coherent national strategy that integrate digitalization. So there's a real need of efforts to initiate new policy and strategies to mainstream digital technology for TVET in particular, but more generally for education. It is also important to note that the rapid change in technology, digital skills are becoming more and more essential for the jobs of today, but also for tomorrow. Whether these changes are beneficial or not, this will depend on the skills. So raising the skills of people, particularly the trainees that come out of the TVET, is so important to make sure that they meet the minimum prerequisite as they enter in the labor market. The COVID-19 has demonstrated the weaknesses of the TVET system in many countries in sustaining delivery of training during the pandemic. Therefore, the fourth industrial revolution requires all African countries to work together, as these are times of rapid change. I think technology is going to be the driver of most of the changes we're looking at, not only in the labor market, but also in the training delivery. As part of the recommendation, a few that we have actually identified. Number one, I think it's very important, as I said, to revisit or develop new TVET policies and strategy to mainstream digitalization, or more globally, the fourth industrial revolution. We need to ensure capacity and political commitment in terms of the availability of ICT infrastructure to start with. And this can only happen when we strengthen the partnership with private sector. Again, there were some good lessons based on our country status report during the COVID-19. We have seen a number of good practices in many countries, including Morocco, Egypt, Tunisia, Rwanda, Kenya, where private sector has really supported the delivery of education, the remote delivery of education. We believe this is something we need to strengthen. We need to continue to make sure that the private sector play their part in making sure they get the qualified, skilled manpower. There's also a need to supply better skilled TVET trainers. And this is, as I said in the beginning, this goes beyond only technical skills. They need to have pedagogical, soft, and more importantly, digital skills because of the era that we are in required for that. We need to instituting policy measures to attract and retain qualified trainers. And this is a challenge that we have seen in many countries. And also initiating or expanding workplace learning policy and practice, taking advantage of the digital technology. Finally, I think it is important to take this opportunity to call again for cross-border collaboration. I think there's so much we can learn from country to country, and this is one of the things that ADEA is really putting forward through our policy dialogue. As I said, we are planning one of these next year, around April, where we believe decision makers, private sector, civil society, and training provider can actually join their hands and make sure that we can learn from each other, and we can also be able to discuss and reflect on our practices and knowledge accordingly. And this is very important as we are looking to strengthen and to expand the new African, the continental freedom areas. Therefore, this requires for a movement of labors. The first thing that we need to do is to make sure that there's actually adequate skilled manpower for this to happen. Lastly, there's also room to learn from others. We have seen good practices, good innovative solutions happening in countries like Singapore, South Korea, to name but a few, rather than looking for something that is already there. Why don't we try to adapt to practices that have shown impact in this regard? So this is really a few slides that I wanted to share, and I thank you for your attention. Back to you, Raki.
Thank you, Albert. Thank you for sharing with the audience the results, challenges, and also some key recommendations from this ADEA research study. I hope that participants will make sure to give some comments to take into account before we release this research study to all our members and regional member countries. So we will now start our different panel sessions. The first one is some selected partners who will share with us some initiative, their perspective, and also some success stories on the support of digital, technical, vocational education and training. So I will give each panelist 10 minutes. The first one I would like to invite is Mrs. Miki Nozawa, a program specialist at UNESCO-UNEVOC, to present the DTVET situation, open sources, and also success stories. Mrs. Nozawa, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, distinguished guests, participants, it is really a great pleasure for me to be with you. So I'm joining from Germany. I'm from International Center UNESCO-UNEVOC for TVET. It's a specialized institution for TVET, which is part of UNESCO. And also on behalf of UNESCO-UNEVOC, I'd like to thank the organizers, ADEA and Festo, really to giving us this opportunity. So digitalization of TVET is an extremely timely topic, and it is really a key to where TVET is heading. Technological developments and digitalization are impacting how TVET can be delivered. And this change is further accelerated with the COVID COVID-19 pandemic. And we know that the pandemic has caused disruptions in the provision of training in different parts of the world, and it has been more challenging for some countries to continue training. And I'd like to show you some of the results of the ILO UNESCO World Bank Group's joint survey conducted on the effects of COVID-19 on TVET. This figure shows how often online or distance learning was used for TVET before the outbreak of the COVID-19. So you can see that online learning was not so widely used in many countries. Nearly a third of all respondents did not use distance learning for training at all, and another third used it only occasionally. By the way, this global survey, we receive responses from 126 countries. Next. And then this shows the use of online distance learning in TVET during the time of COVID-19 pandemic. I'd like to note first that the survey results are from May this year, so the focus is more on the immediate effects. And at that time, at that time of the survey, 90% of respondents reported that TVET centers were closed. So the situation is, of course, different now. But it's really interesting to see the results suggest that take-up of distance learning accelerated in the TVET sector during that period of the crisis. And the results also show that the countries that had more regularly used distance learning for training before the outbreak are more likely to report that they continued to provide the training. And in contrast, many respondents from Africa reported that no online or offline distance learning was provided. And among the main reasons is lack of distance learning infrastructure, internet, connectivity, platforms, resources, and capacities of teaching and learning. However, we can say that this pandemic has provided a test bed for distance learning technologies, and it has given us an opportunity to reflect on the potential of digitalization for more flexible learning solutions for the future. Digitalization is associated with transformation of TVET. And what do we mean by digital transformation of TVET? The recent study by ILO and UNESCO considers 3 elements of digital transformation, and I think this framework can be also very useful for the discussions today. First of all, digital innovation. It is about how technology enables new forms of teaching and learning, including new pedagogies. Digital adaptation considers how technology requires teaching skills to adapt to the changing needs of society and the labor market. Digital acceleration. It is about how existing policies or trends may be accelerated. And in my presentation, I would especially like to focus on this digital innovation. Use of digital technologies in teaching and learning can improve teaching procedures to create a better experience for learners. However, I'd like to stress that digitalization should not be only about introducing and applying new technologies. We believe that digitalization of TVET should go hand in hand with introduction and promotion of innovation in TVET and change in mindsets. As part of UNESCO-UNEVOC's Skills for Innovation Hubs initiative, it's called iHubs, we have developed an innovation framework for TVET institutions. And we also developed a toolbox to help TVET institutions to assess their innovation capacity. And the framework takes into account 4 dimensions, as you see: leadership, broader skills and innovation ecosystem, teaching and learning processes, and products and services. and digitalization is a key driver for innovation. So this innovation framework was developed and tested by 10 selected partner institutions from Africa, Asia, and Europe. They are all members of our global UNEVOC network. And this iHub project has also provided an opportunity for these partner pilot institutions to learn from each other. And I'm very pleased to note that the 3 of the 10 institutions were from Africa, from Kenya, Seychelles, and Nigeria. We all know that the TVET teachers and trainers play a key role in the application of technology in TVET teaching. But the teachers and trainers may lack the capacity to apply modern and technology-aided instruction. So we have identified the challenges faced in our study. And teachers also need enabling digital infrastructure and supporting environments. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about, especially about this access to learning resources for teachers and also for students, learners. Open educational resources. These open education resources, what do they mean? They are learning, teaching, and research materials in any format and medium that reside in the public domain or are under copyright that have been released under an open license that permit no cost access, reuse, repurpose, adaptation, and redistribution by others. TVET has been a rather neglected area in this OER space, although OER have the potential to contribute substantially in the task of skilling people. So at UNESCO-UNEVOC, we have done some research, and also we have supported some initiatives. So we have supported with small grants some selected initiatives in some countries. And I'd like to especially briefly present this example from Africa. So the initiative was called Greening Agriculture Value Chain for Sustainable Post-Harvest Loss Management in the East African Community. So it was implemented by Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology in Kenya. And it is an example of an OER initiative and digital-based teaching in a very rural setting with rather limited technical infrastructure. So this experience of supporting OER-related project in different country settings has really allowed us to gain insights, really interesting insights. So I have listed here. We have seen that this OER really has proven benefits, such as instructors do not need to reinvent the wheel. They can use existing resources and make it their own, giving them the time to improve instruction, for example. And it also offers savings in the cost. It has increased access, and it has raised the quality standard for resources by gathering more contributors and through a peer review. I won't cover all for the interest of time. We have also seen challenges. Quality assurance, it can be a challenge because quality of material gathered may vary significantly. And so there is a need for an effective internal review process before releasing any material to the public. Sustainability can also be an issue because it requires ongoing maintenance and updating. And we have seen that some are reluctant to share their work. Not everyone is happy to share for free. And even if high technology may not necessarily be needed, but still accessibility to electronic resources can be a challenge in some settings. So I'd like to end by emphasizing on networking, sharing, and partnership. These are the words which characterize our work at UNESCO-UNEVOC. One of our role is to serve as a hub for this global UNEVOC network. We have more than 250 UNEVOC centers in over 160 countries. So this sharing partnership were also very much emphasized in the presentation of ADEA Executive Secretary, and I believe that today's event really serves for this purpose. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much again for the invitation.
Thank you, Mrs. Nozawa. Thank you for sharing with us the tremendous work of UNESCO-UNEVOC in this area, and particularly in Africa. We will make sure, of course, to contribute to knowledge sharing with you, and especially for your knowledge hub. Thank you very much. I will now call Mrs. Marcela Marin-Villegas, the project manager at Festo Didactic, to make a presentation on e-skilling and to give us some success stories. Mrs. Marcela, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Gassama, for the introduction. So from my side, also good morning, good afternoon, and also maybe good evening to everyone who is listening to us. I'm from Festo Didactic, Germany, and I'm going to present you the concept for skilling that we are having at the company. So over the last year, we have been how technology and also digitalization has become more important. But in the 2020 with the COVID-19, we just see how this concept we're pushing from being a luxury to become an urgency, but most important in the education. So this is important for us to know that digital education is driven by two focus sectors. From the one side, we have the technology education, which is the learned of the knowledge of technology. And on the other side, we have the educational technology, which means bring the technologies to support the learning process of the students. So since the education is being more mobile and digitalized and also independent, and also there are new and increased challenges regarding the qualification of technicians and also customizing education of solution, this is very important that we address both sides. So this is for us as company, but also for the future as our TVET, it is very important that we focus our trainings and our approach in order to have the technology education as well as education technologies in focus. So in this slide, I'm going to explain you our blended learning approach. So as you see, we have 10 stages here. We will start from the 0-1 on the right side of the slide. This is very important that we start from the very beginning for the macroeconomic sector analysis, which means we have to check the young people, we have to check the current state, but also the future scenarios. This means we have to check the policies of the country, but we have to check the development plans that they have. And then this brings us to the first stage, which is we have at this stage include the employers, involve them, because they are going to help us to define the competence profile. They are going to say what are the needed profession, what are the requirements for the jobs. And then brings us to the stage 2, which is outcomes of the programs. What does it mean? What can the students can do after finalizing this program? This is very important, and therefore it is very important that the company, the industry, and the employers are involved within scenario. So then we go to the stage when we develop the curriculum. This development of the curriculum we do together, and we have here also soft skills, fundamentals, basic, a real complete structure for the curriculum based on DACOMP methodology, which was developed in Ohio as well. So once we have this curriculum already development, designed, and established, we have to make an entrance test, which is the stage 5. Why is so important this entrance stage? Because now we know how are the knowledge and what are also the gaps of their students. This is very important because we know every people learn different. So there are more visual, they want to write, other wants to listen, other want to study in the morning, the others in the afternoon. So it's really important that we have this learning path very individualized. So if you see from the stage 6, if you see the blue area and the gray area, at the beginning, you will need more knowledge and understanding, but at the end, you will need really more skills than really knowledge. And this is the core and the important things of this approach. You will have a coaching, we will have boot camps, and we will bring the students to the end. And of course, we will have an exam, an evaluation, and also in this exam and this design of this exam is very important to have again the employers, again the industry, to see what are the requirements, what are the skills that they really needed. And then at the end, we have the certification, which is the stage 10. And this certification is also depending on the country. So in some countries, we can also work with the AHK, the Chamber of Commerce of Germany, and then the others directly with the Ministry of Education and other directly with the fact centers from Festo, for example. So it's really to adapt to the needs to the country. And this is more or less the approach of the blended learning, which is also supporting by one of our tools that we launched this year that I'm going to explain in the next slide, please. So this is what we call the experience. This is our Festo learning experience. This is the new platform we launched this year that allows you to learn, prepare whenever and wherever you want. What does it mean? You can take your mobile phone, you can take your tablet, you can take your laptop or your PC. What are you going to find here? You are going to find didactic learning contents. You are going to have the individualization for your learning path. And also the educators are going to have access and build industry-aligned content easier and quicker. So this combines e-learning courses with practical exercise, but also with the know-how of the industry. This platform also is going to give you some recommendation if you have already, for example, equipment from Festo. It will be showing the trainings that you can also adapt. All you have to do is create a course, or you can also adapt a course with the course that are already in the platform, but maybe you don't need the complete content, so you can adapt it. Then assign the courses to the learner, start learning, monitor the progress, and for sure have success with it. So on the one side, we have already the features that are already available in this platform. So we have, as you see here, powerful research. We have notification centers, so each student can see what kind of assignment they already have. Mobile learning, as I mentioned before, equipment management as well. But we are thinking in the future. So we are on an ongoing process with our platform. This means we are already working on VR learning. We are already in gamification, also working certificates, adaptive learning. And this is also the progress. This is just more or less the futures as we are working on. But if you have some ideas, you have feedback, we are really, really pleased to hear and work together with you. So yeah. This learning content, just as a summary here, they have multimedia online courses, learning hardware related. You have hybrid learning with simulation and hard software, and also evaluation, which is very important to check your knowledge. This is very important for you, not only for the teachers, but for you as person to really check your knowledge. Next. So since the time is not too long in this colloquium, I would like to invite you to visit us on the ilx.festo.com and then have a free access for our Festo. So you can, for example, create your free account with your private account and have some learning contents, learning nuggets, and then just check if this is something for you, this is interesting for you. But if you want to learn more, you can also contact directly us, and then we can give you a 3 days demo available, and you will have more features like assign roles, assign learning content, monitor learning, and success. And we are really proud of this Festo ILX, and we are really working on it. Next. So, and this brings me almost to the end of my presentation. We always think about pandemic and COVID, this is really bad. But we have also success story during this pandemic, and we have always to see the positive sides of them. So I'm going to present three examples that we have in our company. For example, in South Africa, we started offering the webinars. So at the beginning, our customers, they were not so sure if they will work without the equipment, but the students have to stay home and they couldn't go to the institute or to the school. So we started with the webinars, and at the end, they really realized it is really good with the simulation. For example, as you see in the picture, we have the MPS station simulation, and this is really, really great to understand how does it work, this equipment. And then at the end, they were really glad to have these webinars. So if we just travel to Lagos State in Nigeria, our customer, the Lagos State Technical and Vocational Education Board, they already have 1,000 users working and learning with the Festo Elect. So it's really big success for us, but also for the students and for the people in Nigeria. So you can also check more of this information in the link. And we also become a member of Global Education.
Ms. Marcela, you have 1 second left.
It's the last slide. So, yeah. So we offer learning water technology courses in English, French for all across the world. And my last slide is just to invite you to know more about the seminar. So we'll be shared the link then after all. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mrs. Marcela. Thank you for sharing your blended learning approach, which is an important paradigm shift for teaching and learning, and also to support youth employment with a focus on skills development. Thank you very much. I will now call Mrs. Sandra Flicke, the head of project at the GIZ, to present a new TVET initiative. Mrs. Sandra, you have the floor for 10 minutes, please.
Yes. First of all, thank you very much for this opportunity to very briefly introduce our new project on the future of work. It's indeed just a few days old, so this is a very great opportunity. So thanks for inviting me. I'm also calling from Germany, and I will be managing this project for the next 2 years. And I think I won't need 10 minutes since this is more like an announcement, and we are just starting the project. So the project itself, as you said, is simply called Future of Work, and it's commissioned by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. And since it is part of a fund that supports approaches to policy coherence, German policy coherence, it's also it's always accompanied by another ministry, and in our case, that the second ministry is the Federal Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs. On the other hand, the projects out of this fund always involve two very different regions. And in our case, the ministries went for the Central African region and South Asia. So the project mainly aims at contributing to the exchange with our partner countries, to the understanding of fourth industrial revolution and its impacts, and of course to the international dialogue and agenda setting concerning the future of work. We are not an explicit TVET program, so the objective consists in anchoring cross-sectoral approaches for shaping the future of work regarding to structural change of the economy and labor markets through digitalization and automation, securing basic labor and social standards, of course, strengthening new and digital skills and develop relevant competencies. This is a very important element of this new project, and establishing sustainable social security systems. So we are working together with all these GIZ sector programs. For example, with the sector project on technical and vocational education and training, ADEA is cooperating with already. And we are trying to build kind of a roof for all these different perspectives on the future of work. Project measures are to be implemented at essentially 3 different levels. On the national level there, we are planning research studies, and we're planning scenario workshops for a multitude of different actors that should be hosted on site, hopefully. Let's see what COVID let us do. And the second field of action will be a regional and super regional level. So we are planning different peer learnings and twinning formats to facilitate the exchange of knowledge and experiences on the future of work between different countries and different regions, both on-site and digitally. And of course, we have the international level. So we are planning to discuss and present results of the project in the framework of international fora and processes. And we will support the two ministries here. Yes, with a view to the time, so much perhaps in due course about this new project, I would be very happy to share more information at a later date, and maybe when we have first success stories to share also, and when the team has been set up and we start implementation. But thank you again very much for allowing me to at least announce this new project here, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much for this, for sharing with us this new initiative. We hope that you will be able to share with us results and during a a meeting of sharing of knowledge. Thank you very much. Sorry, I apologize. So I'm glad now to take advantage of this platform to present selected best innovative solutions from private sector and civil society organization. I will now give the floor for 10 minutes also to few speakers to highlight key aspects of their innovation. The first one I will invite is Mr. Tommy Salasti, in charge of partnership at Funzi, a private sector firm based in Finland. Mr. Salasti, you have the floor.
Thank you. Dear honorable ministers, organizers from Festo and ADEA, and everyone here in the event, I'm Tommy Salasti, and it's an honor to be presenting here Funzi and our success stories and our approach on digital TVET. So I guess many of you know that we are in a huge need for reskilling around the world, and World Economic Forum has estimated that actually 50% of the employees need to be reskilled by 2025. And the question is that how do we solve this huge skills mismatch problem? And we have a great solution for that, and that's mobile learning, thanks to its great scalability. Basically, Funzi empowers both individuals and organizations to deliver effective mobile learning to their target audiences. And our mission is simple. We want to deliver access to this useful learning, to practical skills, to the millions of people around the globe, and especially in African countries and also in Southeast Asia. And we do this by a combination of effective and unique mobile pedagogy and an engaging user experience. And we need to start with our users, our learners, because everything we do at Funzi is designed from the perspective of our learners. Many of the current EdTech companies, they actually focus on those people who already have access to education, who already have computers, perhaps even employment and money. And the reason for this is that they are much easier to reach. But we focus on the rest. We focus on those people who don't have access to proper education, who don't have computers, but they have a phone and they have a huge motivation to learn. And that's our user group. And we need to start with content. And the world is full of content, so content itself is not a problem. The problem is how do we deliver it to the phones, to the small screens? So how do we transform the existing content? So what Funzi does is we take existing quality educational content and we apply our unique mobile pedagogy on the content. And basically we make it bite-sized, engaging, easy to digest through the small and tiny screens of mobile phones of our users. And then the second part, which is super important, is how we deliver it. So we use our mobile learning service, which works on every single connected device. So even on those feature phones, I guess you all remember the old Nokia phones, no touch screen, tiny screens, but they have an internet connection, and that's all that's required for using Funzi. And importantly as well, many of our users struggle with the data fees. So that's why our system has been optimized to use as low amounts of data as possible, because our users, they don't want to pay for high data cost. And videos, for example, are a problem for many of our users. That's why we normally don't use videos. And what we then reach our users either through digital marketing or through our partners, who might be anything from UN organizations, NGOs, or corporations around the world. And our users really love learning with our service. And actually more about that later. So this is to describe how we are different than many of the other players. So firstly, Funzi is not a learning management system itself. We are highly optimized for mobiles. But at the same time, I mean, Funzi works in computers, but that's just not the reality of our users. Secondly, we're a generic platform in that way that there's many different kind of skills that can be delivered through Funzi. So we're not like Duolingo, who focuses on language learning, and they do it great. But actually, we don't do any language learning. And the reason for that is that you need kind of different approach for that one as well. What else we don't do? Certain super specific technical skills. Programming is a good example. Because if you're a programmer, you have a computer. You don't do coding with your phone. So using a phone for the learning doesn't actually bring that much added value in that sense. And here are some of our impactful and great cases. And first one is in Nigeria with a company called East-West Seed. And actually there we're training smallholder farmers about vegetable seedling production, both in English and in Hausa language. And it's been a great success story. Completion rates are out of this world, and we're actually currently planning on how to scale this to other countries as well and to wider reach. Second one here is in Vietnam, huge EU-funded program with Switch Asia. And here it's about sustainability in food production. And we're actually reaching 500,000 consumers in Vietnam, and also training some small and medium-sized enterprises there. Thirdly, a few years ago, we did a program in Syria with UNDP. And actually here, UNDP was training their partner NGO field staff about project management, warehouse management, and so on. And this is some of the feedback actually from Nigeria, from the farmers. And it's so heartwarming to get this kind of feedback that we really know that the farmers have enjoyed and learned things, and they can better do their job nowadays, thanks to the learning through Funzi and East-West Seed. And this is the reason why our team strives forward and so on. Lately, we have also signed a partnership with Pearson, which I guess you most know that it's one of the biggest educational companies. And what we do with Pearson is that we have access to their e-books, and basically we make mobile learning courses out of their content. So high quality content that's now being optimized for mobile learning. And the categories include everything from career development, employability, entrepreneurship, life skills, and so on. And at the moment, we're actually building a professionally curated course selection, which is going to include both totally free courses that individuals around the world can use without any payment, and also these affordable Pearson premium courses. And this course selection can then be used by both individuals and organizations in all the ways they want, and deliver the learning then to target audiences. And this is going to be launched in the beginning of next year. You can try Funzi actually yourself. Easiest way is to go with your phone and just in the web browser type www.funzi.mobi, or then follow this link or this QR code and it takes you to Funzi as well. And yeah, I want to thank you, everyone, especially the organizers. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Salasti, for sharing an interesting initiative of leveraging mobile technology to avail a demand-driven solution. Thank you very much for sharing. So I will now invite Mr. Iyaha Hawi Haller, the Digital Learning Manager at Digital Consulting based in Côte d'Ivoire. You have the floor. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Raki.
OK, juste pour une expérience de digitalisation de formation professionnelle technique, donc une expérience basée sur l'un des projets de GIZ dont a parlé tantôt Madame. Voilà, donc en fait, pour situer un peu le contexte de l'approche, il s'agit juste de digitaliser la précédente, s'il vous plaît, digitaliser une formation classique qui s'adresse à un public de professionnels. Donc, les motivations sont simples, double motivation. D'abord parce que le choix de l'option digitalisation par blended learning, c'est-à-dire mix présentiel e-learning, a été motivé par d'abord la réalité du public. Le public cible est un public qui a beaucoup de contraintes de terrain. C'est des professionnels de terrain qui ne peuvent pas se prêter à un scénario de présence en salle. Et la deuxième motivation, c'est l'exigence du commanditaire qui voulait absolument, avant même que le CODIV n'arrive, qui voulait absolument que cette formation se fasse par l'usage de la multiplicité des outils numériques qui sont disponibles sur le marché. Donc, le contexte est très simple. Donc, c'est une formation qui s'adresse d'abord en priorité à un groupe de 75 apprentis. Donc, dont GIZ finançait la formation sur les thématiques de solaire photovoltaïque, d'efficacité énergétique en industrie, efficacité énergétique en bâtiment. Donc, 3 thématiques de formation. Donc, pour ce groupe, la formation devait se dérouler, bien sûr, par la méthode classique, en salle, avec une innovation, donc par l'alternance entre les entreprises devant accueillir les étudiants pendant leur formation et le site de l'école qui se trouve donc à Bergerville, à Abidjan. Donc, la formation est mise en œuvre, bien sûr, par le Centre des métiers de la Société d'eau et d'électricité de Côte d'Ivoire, donc pour le compte de la GIZ. Donc, l'encadrement de ces 115 apprenants devait se faire d'abord sur le site de l'établissement par des formateurs et dans les entreprises par ce qu'on appelait des maîtres tuteurs, qui sont des professionnels qui ont été sélectionnés au sein des entreprises pour assurer l'encadrement pendant la partie terrain de la formation. Donc, c'est ce qu'on appelle le DIAL, la formation DIAL. Donc, cette formation spécifique devait effectivement se faire par la modalité digitale, donc le blended learning, donc parce qu'il fallait apporter à tous ces maîtres acteurs les nouveaux concepts qui sont enseignés aux étudiants et partager avec eux les nouvelles approches liées à l'efficacité énergétique et à la conception des systèmes solaires photovoltaïques. La suivante. Voilà, donc la solution, on va la décrire en 4 étapes. Donc, c'est du classique. D'abord, c'est les contenus existants conçus par des professionnels, etc., ont été séquencés, c'est-à-dire découpés en fonction des thématiques. Voilà, donc ce séquençage a permis de mettre en place ce qu'on appelle des parcours de formation, donc des programmes qui sont diffusés en ligne. C'est un peu l'alternative des emplois du temps dans les salles de classe en présentiel. Voilà, donc le parcours étant une activité, un ensemble d'activités pédagogiques que l'étudiant étudie sur un ordinateur. Le principe, c'est de diffuser ce parcours par semaine entière, donc du lundi au dimanche, donc 16 semaines au total, indexées à chacun des parcours. Donc, les durées de parcours sont indexées à leur poids dans le cursus de formation. Voilà, et puis, bon, le principe, c'était de blandiser la formation, c'est-à-dire faire un mix avec un certain nombre de modules qui sont réalisés en présentiel et d'autres qui sont réalisés en ligne. Donc, ça, c'est du classique en matière de digitalisation. Ça fait partie d'une des étapes conceptuelles d'un système de formation digitalisée, c'est la partie séquençage. Ensuite, la partie scénario pédagogique, c'est la définition des contenus de programme qui sont les parcours qu'on a vus précédemment. Donc, dans ces parcours, on met les ressources qui permettent de se former. C'est exactement ce que fait un formateur en salle. Il met des modules d'apprentissage qui sont transférés la connaissance de façon autonome, voilà, qui sont interactifs, multimédia, etc., qui embarquent pas mal médias intuitifs qui permettent donc d'apprendre, des modules d'auto-évaluation pour se tester, s'évaluer, etc., avec des interactions et des rétroactions qui sont automatiques, des systèmes de classe virtuelle, voilà, pour faire un peu de l'humain, faire des activités interactives apprenant en tuteur, et puis des forums en ligne. Donc tout ça, c'est ce qui constitue le contenu d'un parcours. On appelle communément le scénario pédagogique ou donc, dans le présentiel, on appellera l'emploi du temps. Voilà l'étape 3, donc, qui est la préparation en fait. La préparation, c'est qu'est-ce qu'on délivre, il faut le préparer. Donc on ne prend pas le cours PowerPoint pour le mettre sur une plateforme, bon, ça n'apporte aucune valeur ajoutée. Pour que ça ait que ça soit attractif, que ça ait une valeur ajoutée, il faut le transformer. Donc c'est le concept de production, hein, de production de contenu. Donc qui utilise des techniques associées à des outils. Donc dans le cadre de cette expérience, on a utilisé l'outil articulé 360, donc un parmi tant d'autres, hein, qui permet de donner de la valeur à un contenu qu'on délivre en ligne pour optimiser l'apprentissage. Voilà. Ensuite, l'étape 4, c'est la phase opérationnelle. Hein. Une fois que les contenus sont préparés, ils sont mis en œuvre et tout, on les diffuse sur la plateforme. Voilà, la suivante, c'est le déploiement. Donc, le déploiement se fait sur les outils classiques qu'on appelle les LMS, qui sont accessibles sur ordinateur et sur smartphone. Donc, j'ai vu dans la présentation précédente, le collègue a présenté une solution qui permet d'accéder à la ressource, de la connaissance sur un outil qu'on appelle un LMS. Donc, ce qu'on a vu là précédemment, on utilise notamment l'outil Online Format Pro de l'éditeur Online Format Pro. Voilà, donc ça, c'est le contexte technique de la mise en œuvre. Évidemment, bien sûr, ce contexte technique, la facilité avec laquelle la formation a été déployée sur cet environnement a été induite par le fait que bon, la gouvernance de l'institution a anticipé sur ces solutions. C'est-à-dire, bon, les opérateurs de formation professionnelle et technique, on les avertit qu'on ne décide pas de passer à la digitalisation sans avoir conçu les briques de base. Les briques de base, c'est les outils. Bon, évidemment, les autres briques de base, c'est la formation, bien sûr, des acteurs, formation des enseignants, formation même des étudiants à l'utilisation des outils qu'on verra tout à l'heure au titre de recommandation. Donc, c'est les points, tout ce qu'on a évoqué précédemment, donc ça illustre un peu la solution technique. Hein, c'est une parmi tant d'autres. Il existe plusieurs variantes de solutions de ce type. On conceptualise, on utilise des outils pour diffuser. Et là, pour partager un peu le retour d'expérience, c'est les résultats obtenus. Bon, évidemment, c'est l'amélioration du taux d'accès à la formation. Voilà, donc 75 apprenants qui ont été formés par des tuteurs qui eux-mêmes ont été formés par les outils digitaux. Donc, c'est un accroissement à la formation professionnelle, donc par des outils numériques. L'acquisition de nouvelles connaissances pratiques et théoriques, donc ça, c'est du classique. Le développement des compétences, donc dans les créneaux qui sont ciblés, et puis la réponse appropriée aux contraintes des apprenants ciblés, voilà, parce que la digitalisation de la formation professionnelle, on l'a fait, bon, parce que c'est dans la mode, mais on l'a fait aussi pour résoudre des problèmes précis. Là, par exemple, c'est le problème de disponibilité des apprenants qui est résolu par cette solution. Ensuite, l'amélioration de la productivité des apprenants, bon, par l'usage des technologies innovantes qui ont été véhiculées par cette formation. Et puis, bon, l'apprentissage de l'autonomie dans la prise en charge de son apprentissage tout au long de la vie. Donc, ceux qui ont fait cette formation vont tout au long de la vie s'adapter à ce type de formation pour continuer à accroître leurs connaissances dans le temps. On peut le citer comme un acquis, un résultat de la formation. Voilà, donc sur les leçons, c'est un peu les recommandations en tant qu'expert digital learning, c'est les recommandations que nous faisons aux organisations, c'est bon, de s'assurer d'abord des exigences organisationnelles d'un dispositif, parce que la mise en place d'un dispositif de digitalisation, c'est une nouvelle école. C'est une nouvelle école qui nécessite des compétences spécifiques qu'il faut connaître, qu'il faut avoir, qu'il faut acquérir, qu'il faut entretenir. On ne prend pas un maître d'école ou un professeur de lycée d'une institution d'enseignement technique pour en faire un expert digital du jour au lendemain. Donc, il y a des compétences, bien sûr. Il a son rôle dans l'équipe, on le verra. Donc, l'expertise qui est requise pour ces activités, bon, c'est d'abord de la conception, du développement, de la création du contenu, voilà, c'est la fabrique, voilà, sur des principes qui sont aujourd'hui mûrs. C'est l'encadrement tutoral, voilà. C'est la conception même des ressources hein, faites par les professeurs, les enseignants, qu'on appelle les experts de contenu, SME. Voilà. Et puis l'expertise tutorale, c'est l'encadrement, c'est-à-dire enseigner dans le système classique, et accompagner dans un dispositif de formation digitale, ça concourt à la même finalité, mais ce n'est pas la même approche. Voilà. Donc, l'action tutorale de formation, c'est une approche qui s'apprend, ça fait partie de l'expertise qui est requise dans les dispositifs de digitalisation. Ensuite, bon, il y a toute l'expertise de suivi et d'accompagnement. Bon, les défis rapidement, c'est la digitalisation tout azimut, hein, n'épargne pas la formation, il faut s'y mettre, etc. Donc, dans les recommandations, je citerai un peu sur l'approche méthodologique. Je citais là en 6 points, ce que toute institution qui se projette dans un processus de digitalisation doit observer pour ne pas se retrouver dans un projet qui est mort-né, comme on en a vu partout. Voilà, ça part de la définition de la nature de la digitalisation, qu'est-ce qu'il faut digitaliser, jusqu'à l'élaboration d'un plan d'action rigoureux, évidemment, qui s'appuie sur, bien sûr, des objectifs précis et des ressources appropriées pour l'accompagner. Voilà, donc, bon, juste le maître mot ici, c'est la conduite du changement. C'est le maître mot. Passer du classique au numérique, c'est du changement. Un changement tellement important que pour être conduit, il faut engager une politique du changement. Voilà, donc je finis en disant simplement que la formation est pour moi une dimension extrêmement importante pour qu'on la laisse au bricolage, encore moins le digital, parce qu'il est beaucoup plus compliqué.
Merci beaucoup de nous donner votre expérience en termes de formation mixte pour l'apprentissage. Je rappelle également aux speakers et ainsi qu'à l'audience qu'il est possible de communiquer à travers le chat si vous voulez plus d'informations. I'm just reminding all speakers and also participants that it is possible for you to discuss on the chat if you have some specific questions on all the presentation that we will share, of course, with you, and also all the link and the recording also of these sessions. J'aimerais maintenant donner la parole à Monsieur Abdoulaye Kanté, qui est conseiller régional pour le développement des technologies de l'information et de la communication à Terre des Hommes, basé au Burkina Faso. Monsieur Kanté, vous avez vraiment 10 minutes précises. Merci.
Merci, madame. Je pense que je tiendrai dans les délais. Je m'appelle Abdoulaye Kanté, comme on l'a dit. Je suis conseiller régional TIC et développement au niveau de la zone Afrique de Terre des Hommes. Et je suis basé à Dakar. Je vais présenter un projet que nos collègues du Burkina Faso sont en train de dérouler depuis presque un certain nombre de temps, parce qu'il y avait une phase pilote et là on est passé à une deuxième phase et l'accent sera mis sur cette deuxième phase. Juste un tout petit peu de mots sur Terre des Hommes pour que vous sachiez ce que Terre des Hommes fait. Ce que nous faisons, c'est que nous intervenons dans presque 40 pays, en fait dans les domaines de l'enfance, sur des problématiques de santé, de protection et urgence. Et jusqu'à ce jour, nous avons plus de 4 millions d'enfants et leurs proches dans près de 40 pays. Et pour parler du projet au Burkina Faso, le Burkina Faso est une de nos délégations majeures. Et le Burkina Faso mène beaucoup d'activités dans presque tous les domaines sur lesquels Terre des Hommes intervient. En fait, il s'agit de digitalisation, mais bon, Terre des Hommes, l'expérience de Terre des Hommes en termes de digitalisation, c'est vaste. On travaille sur des solutions liées à des mobiles applications, à tout ce qui est big data pour gérer les données volumineuses, sur les problématiques de cloud computing, du stockage donc. Nous avons aussi des projets sur l'intelligence artificielle et digital fabrication, qui est le cœur de ce projet dont on va parler sur les prochaines slides. Et nous avons aussi des projets dans la finance digitale. Disons qu'en termes de digitalisation, nous avons une solide infrastructure basée sur des partenariats que nous avons avec des institutions qui sont reconnues, notamment la Fondation Clareura, la Fondation Tableau. Nous travaillons aussi beaucoup avec Dimagi, notamment la solution Comter, qui travaille dans le domaine de la e-santé, doivent savoir. Nous avons aussi naturellement une plateforme Microsoft Azure. Nous sommes aussi partie prenante de la FAP Foundation et nous appliquons le principe aussi du digital développement. Disons maintenant pour répondre au sujet de cette conférence qui est la digitalisation de l'enseignement professionnel et technique, nous allons parler du projet Résolab. Disons que Résolab est un projet qui permet à des jeunes qui travaillent dans le domaine des mines, qui travaillent, disons, qui font de l'orpaillage, puissent bénéficier de formations professionnelles pour leur offrir encore beaucoup plus de possibilités et d'opportunités. Ce projet, il y a eu une phase pilote qui s'est déroulée entre 2018 et 2019. Et en 2020, nous avons eu un financement de la coopération belge pour démarrer continuer le projet, en fait passer à l'échelle en continuant sur l'approche que nous avions développée. Et cette approche est basée sur ce qu'on appelle les 9 principes du développement. Pour nous, c'est l'approche. C'est important de s'arrêter un peu sur ces principes. C'est qu'aujourd'hui, dans la digitalisation, le plus important et qui nous semble nous parfaitement maîtriser, c'est d'avoir le plus d'impact possible, c'est de mettre les technologies au service des besoins de notre public, au service des besoins des humains. Et de ce point de vue, qu'est-ce qu'on a fait comme approche dans le cadre de ce projet? C'est que d'abord, nous avons étudié ce qu'on appelle, nous, l'écosystème et que le principe énonce par Understanding the Existing Ecosystem. Ensuite, nous avons essayé de bâtir un parcours de formation qui, avec nos pour anticiper sur la question de l'appropriation. Et nous avons aussi anticipé de ce projet pour le passage à l'échelle, ce qui a fait que nous sommes passés d'une phase pilote à une phase aujourd'hui encore beaucoup plus consistante en termes de réplication, sans pour autant qu'il y ait eu beaucoup de problèmes, parce que le projet a été conçu de cette sorte, de cette façon. On avait anticipé sur ces risques de passage à l'échelle. Et nous nous appuyons aussi sur la collaboration avec des partenaires. Aujourd'hui, c'est quoi Resolab en termes de formation professionnelle et de digitalisation? C'est un espace d'innovation ouverte qu'on appelle un Fab Lab pour nous. Donc, un Fab Lab leur offre la possibilité de se connecter sur Internet, de suivre aussi des cours en présentiel, mais des enseignements assez techniques et professionnalisants. C'est-à-dire aujourd'hui, dans le cas du Burkina Faso, on a installé des imprimantes 3D, des machines à broder et des découpeurs laser et vinyle qui permettent aujourd'hui à ceux qui fréquentent le Fab Lab de pouvoir bénéficier en fait de nouvelles compétences basées sur leur imagination, parce que l'imprimante 3D permettra de ressortir un modèle, par exemple, sur quelque chose que la personne a designé par elle-même et permettre aussi à partir de l'imprimante 3D. Les machines aussi à broder, c'est comme ça, c'est-à-dire des filles qui s'adonnent aujourd'hui au métier de couture peuvent venir dessiner des modèles et la machine permet de restituer ce modèle presque de la même façon que ça a été conçu par la personne. Donc, on va parler des perspectives. Disons que les résultats et les perspectives, nous avions en fait eu enfants qui ont été formés, dont 246 filles et 132 garçons. Aujourd'hui, toujours dans le cadre, nous projetons aujourd'hui d'offrir la formation à 680 enfants et à 1200 aussi jeunes qui vont aussi bénéficier de la plateforme d'enseignement à distance que nous allons mettre en œuvre. Aussi. Nous sommes en train de développer un programme d'incubation qui va incuber 60 enfants qui bénéficieront de la formation professionnelle, mais qui pourront aussi mettre en œuvre un peu le domaine de l'entrepreneuriat, expérimenter aussi du business aussi s'ils veulent, et améliorer l'accès à 1370 autres enfants. Et nous avons fait l'extension du projet. On est passé de la commune de Moktedo à 2 autres communes, Boudri et Zorgo, toujours au Burkina Faso. Donc, disons qu'en termes de leçons, nous, on s'est appuyé beaucoup sur des constats que nous sont venus de la pandémie pour savoir que c'est une opportunité pour nous d'accélérer la digitalisation en Afrique. Et dans le cadre du Resolab, nous essayons de mettre en place toute cette approche que nous avions, dont j'ai parlé tout à l'heure, pour nous permettre de former le maximum de personnes. Et ensuite, tous ces projets, pour nous, c'est des qui permettront à des jeunes de pouvoir bénéficier aussi d'autres opportunités.
Nous partagerons votre présentation avec l'ensemble des participants. Je suis vraiment désolée. Je m'excuse.
Merci.
Hein. Merci. So I will give the floor to Mr. Lionel Aimé, in charge of Area Sales Manager at Lucas Nile, based in Germany. Mr. Lionel, you have the floor, please.
Bonjour et merci. J'espère que tout le monde peut voir ma présentation que je viens de partager. Je vais essayer d'être bref et de maintenir le délai et de vous partager ensemble des expériences avec ce monde qui change. Et on l'a vu dernièrement, aussi bien aujourd'hui que dans les dernières conférences de l'ADEA, beaucoup de choses changent avec la pandémie et avec les technologies. Et le grand défi ou les grands défis que je peux résumer en quelques phrases et dont on a entendu déjà aujourd'hui des certitudes sont que la diversité des solutions permet une certaine flexibilité et une réactivité, que les connaissances et les compétences techniques augmentent l'indépendance et l'autonomie, surtout en temps de crise. On l'a vu avec la fermeture des frontières, c'est quand on a une propre connaissance et compétences qu'on va pouvoir réagir le mieux à toutes les situations. De plus, l'autonomie dans l'apprentissage ouvre un nouvel horizon. On l'a vu dans certaines présentations déjà, mais ce n'est pas que l'outil didactique qui va aider, c'est aussi la façon dont on va apprendre. L'autonomie, changer le principe de fonctionnement ou le principe d'apprentissage qui va être très important. Ce n'est pas nouveau. Un Allemand très connu il y a quelques années disait déjà « La connaissance s'acquiert par l'expérience, tout le reste n'est que de l'information ». Et je pense que cette phrase est totalement vraie et encore plus vraie dans le monde actuel de l'information, où on parle beaucoup d'informations, on voit beaucoup de choses, mais on fait rarement la part entre l'information et la compréhension. Et c'est très important, et c'est le fonctionnement même du cerveau humain, et celui-là il ne changera pas ni aujourd'hui, ni avec un Covid, ni avec un fonctionnement online ou offline, c'est vraiment le principe de fonctionnement du cerveau, c'est ce qu'on va entendre, lire, on va en oublier une grande partie parce qu'on se fait des images. Donc c'est vrai que le monde de l'image, pourquoi elle est si puissante, c'est qu'avec le monde de l'image, avec les images en plus, le cerveau va beaucoup plus facilement, on va dire, enregistrer les images et pouvoir s'en rappeler. Mais on n'est pas encore dans la pratique et dans l'apprentissage technique. Donc c'est vraiment au moment où on va réaliser soi-même, on va pouvoir comprendre les choses. Qui dit comprendre va pouvoir dire aussi les réappliquer, trouver des solutions à des problématiques dans le monde réel, dans le monde technique. Alors, une petite histoire très rapide. Forcément, un monde parfait, c'est un monde sans Covid, on est bien d'accord sur ce point. Dans ce monde parfait, on peut avoir des beaux laboratoires. Alors, ces laboratoires, je dirais en 2020, sont souvent des smart classrooms, c'est-à-dire des classrooms ou des laboratoires où on associe théorie et pratique, aussi bien les ordinateurs que le hardware. Un petit exemple ici d'un centre africain équipé, aussi bien pour des laboratoires avec des machines électriques que des laboratoires en télécommunication, où on associe tout à fait des contenus, des mesures avec la partie équipement. L'intérêt derrière, j'ai entendu blended learning, alors je crois qu'il y a différentes définitions derrière le blended learning. Il y a notamment, on a entendu juste avant une présentation sur le blended learning en présentiel et en offline. Je pense que dans l'environnement technique, nous on utilise le terme blended learning surtout pour la combinaison entre e-learning et pratique. C'est-à-dire que l'apprentissage technique peut se faire en partie en e-learning pour comprendre, préparer les choses, mais c'est vraiment au moment où on fait des travaux pratiques qu'on va avoir la réelle compréhension des choses. Et tout ça va être très important, c'est la pédagogie qui va avec. On l'a entendu, la pédagogie est très importante et c'est fait depuis des années qu'on a des cours intégrés chez Vocational qui permettent d'accompagner. Et l'important, c'est d'avoir des choses complètes, un environnement simple pour l'apprenant. Ça veut dire apprendre au même endroit, une approche modulaire, on l'a déjà entendu avant. La diversité, les contenus permettent, avec une approche modulaire, de réagir très facilement. Très important aussi d'avoir des outils intégrés, faciles à mettre en œuvre. Important aussi, les langues. Beaucoup d'outils sont uniquement disponibles en anglais. Nos outils sont disponibles en français, en anglais, en portugais, en arabe. Très important pour l'accessibilité, surtout pour les connaissances et les formations professionnelles. Important aussi, la version offline et ou online. C'est bien la version online, c'est génial les versions online, quand l'accès est là. Si l'accès n'est pas là, comment vous faites? Donc il faut aussi des versions offline, et même en Europe, la plupart des écoles travaillent encore avec des versions offline, parce que c'est une façon, une transition vers un monde qui change de plus en plus. On voit ici un exemple de questions-réponses. Important aussi, la méthode de travail et l'autonomie des apprenants dès le début de l'apprentissage, c'est-à-dire leur donner dans des exercices pratiques la possibilité d'avoir un feedback automatique. Ce n'est plus le professeur qui donne un feedback à la fin d'un TP, c'est le système qui donne automatiquement un suivi et ça permet un auto-apprentissage des apprenants. Ils voient la théorie, ils font des petits exercices, ils répondent à des questions, ils ont le feedback. C'est totalement différent, c'est une approche totalement différente. Dire Corona, c'est une solution magique, on vous la donne, ça serait mentir. Il n'y a pas la solution magique en termes de Corona ni en d'autres temps. Il y a des solutions. Et ça qui est important, je pense à retenir aussi, il faut différentes solutions et plus on a d'outils, plus on a de solutions dans notre bagage, plus ça sera facile de répondre. On a vu tous, je passe en bref, une solution purement learning pour la théorie, c'est bien. On vient tous à la maison avec un ordinateur, l'Internet fonctionne, ça marche. Et dans les faits, ce n'est pas vraiment le cas. Qu'est-ce qu'on fait avec un laboratoire pratique? Comment on le transfère à la maison? Il y a des outils. Un exemple ici de Bosch en Allemagne, très facile. Les outils qui ont été livrés partout dans le monde, également en Afrique. Des outils faciles à emporter chez soi, où tout est intégré, qu'on peut prendre avec une valise. On voit ici l'étudiant, l'apprenant qui travaille chez lui à la maison. Seule chose qu'il a besoin, c'est un ordinateur et une prise de courant. Il peut être en offline, il n'est pas obligé d'être en online. Donc, il peut très facilement travailler, même de la maison et dans différents contextes. On m'a dit d'accélérer un peu, donc je passe rapidement. Important aussi, même si on est à la maison, il y a des choses qu'on doit faire dans le laboratoire. Si le Covid ne permet pas d'accéder au laboratoire, on peut mettre en place des apprentissages à distance ou distancés, c'est-à-dire accéder de l'extérieur vers des outils. Là encore, des outils qui permettent d'avoir des mesures intégrées, permettent beaucoup plus facilement de mettre en place toutes ces choses. Donc voilà, je suis bref. Je veux juste vous dire, la multiplicité a vraiment des avantages. Le Covid, c'est cette année. On espère tous que l'année prochaine, le Covid sera terminé. Mais on ne sait pas, en 2023, en 2024, peut-être pas un Covid, peut-être un virus Internet qui va nous bloquer des mois. Il faut être flexible et dynamique. C'est ça qui nous permettrait de réagir. C'est vraiment notre approche chez Vocational d'avoir la flexibilité, des solutions simples, solutions online et offline, et tout ça dans un environnement de travail interactif. Je vous invite à consulter par la suite ma présentation. On est une société allemande, on est basé en Allemagne, on fait que de didactique, on est spécialisé dans ça. On a des offices à Dubaï, en USA, en Chine et au Congo. On est vraiment présent sur le terrain, on essaie de répondre au mieux à vos questions. Et on a une multitude de domaines pour finir ça. Et la dernière slide pour finir, on ferait vraiment toute la partie, aussi bien la production, c'est nos propres produits qu'on développe et qu'on produit. On a la planification plusieurs places et une partie très importante qu'on a déjà entendue aujourd'hui, la formation des formateurs sur place dans leur langue. Et pour plus d'informations, je vous invite tous à me contacter. J'espère que j'ai été assez bref. Et un grand merci pour m'avoir invité et à très bientôt.
Merci beaucoup pour ce partage, c'était parfait. Et j'espère que vous aurez l'opportunité de discuter également avec certains de nos participants, partenaires et pays membres. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Aimé. Merci beaucoup. Je vais maintenant passer la parole à notre prochain speaker. So I will now give the floor to Mrs. Alexandra van der Plug, the Head of Corporate Social Responsibility at SAP. Mrs. Alexandra, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'll try to be brief. I know we're a little bit behind. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak to all of you today. It's a real honor. Maybe just a little bit of background on who SAP is, just so that you know what kind of company is talking to you today. SAP was founded in Germany in 1972 and is today recognized as an international powerhouse, committed to supporting every customer to become best run enterprises. And basically, we're the largest provider of enterprise application software. We serve over 400,000 companies. 77% of the world's transaction revenues touch an SAP system. Our customers distribute 78% of the world's food and 82% of the world's medical devices, just to sort of give you a bit of a flavor for the scope of who we are. But as a global leader in innovation, our higher purpose goes beyond economic success. We help the world run better and improve people's lives by using our considerable resources and broad reach to help the world's economy, society, and environment to prosper together. We believe that innovation is not just an opportunity, but actually also a responsibility, and one that belongs to everyone. However, when you look at statistics, it is very clear that not everybody is participating in innovation and is participating in the digital economy. Over 50% of the world's population is not connected to the digital economy. And the ILO just recently brought out a study that said that over 50% of the world's youth will not have the required skills by 2030 for basic employment. These are scary statistics, and I think that COVID-19 has obviously exacerbated what UNICEF already coined the global learning crisis quite a while ago. What do we do in this? We want to make sure that we tackle this issue head on by powering opportunity through digital inclusion. And basically what this means is that we've built programs and partnerships that address issues of building, accessing, and applying 21st century skills for everybody, ensuring that nobody gets left behind. Basically, it means two things. One, we have programs that look at how we can ignite an early passion for technology in young people. That's one avenue. And the second avenue is how do we increase employability and employment opportunities that make youth not just users of technology, but actually creators through technology. And let me give you two examples how we do that. The first example is Africa Code Week. Africa Code Week is Africa's largest digital skills program. It was founded in 2015 and has created free opportunities for millions of young Africans to learn coding skills by building teaching capacity and supporting the adoption of coding into national curricula across the continent. Africa Code Week continues to grow in popularity and reach. In 2019 alone, the initiative impacted over 3.8 million lives of young people, mobilized close to 40,000 teachers, and we hosted 55,000 free coding workshops across 37 countries. So it's a pretty massive undertaking. But the key of Africa Code Week is that we are completely aware that we cannot run any of this by ourselves. No systemic change, irrespective of what the social issue is, can be done in splendid isolation of each other. So it is incredibly important to build strong public and private partnerships, which we've been able to do with Africa Code Week. We work together with governments, public institutions, and nonprofit organizations. Some of our partners include ADEA, UNESCO, Irish Aid, and GIZ BMZ. This year was obviously a bit of a challenge, but we managed to do Africa Code Week completely virtually. It was expanded to 54 countries on the African continent. We started implementing a mobile app, and we had a continent-wide coding challenge. Important to understand is also that diversity and gender diversity in particular is hugely important for Africa Code Week, and close to 50% of all participants are girls. So this is one example. The second example is on employability. And this is what we call Skills for Africa, where we aim to develop ICT skills in Africa as part of our commitment to promoting education and entrepreneurship. The SAP Young Professionals Program is a 3-month training and development opportunity that trains and certifies university graduates that are unemployed or underemployed on SAP's latest innovations, as well as soft and future skills. We connect young people directly through these boot camps with employment opportunities. And we've been able to train up over 1,200 young Africans through the Young Professional Program in a variety of different countries. I think we're up to 20 countries now, and we're planning to expand. So these are just two examples of what we're doing. But again, key here is none of it can be done alone. PPPs are the name of the game. It cannot be done otherwise. And we are very fortunate that we have a very committed board that supports us in all of these efforts. And an expression of that is that our board, our CEO, is part of the advisory council of Generation Unlimited, which you probably know about. And we are it basically shows our top level commitment to education and workforce readiness. Thank you so much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to hearing more during this colloquium.
Thank you very much. And you made a great aspect regarding PPPs, because we are now, and I request everybody please to stay connected. We will be late maybe for 20 minutes. Because now we are going to have the perspective of selected ministers or their representative to share with us some respective perspective on two key aspects. The first one is within the framework of the fourth industrial revolution, digital skills underpin nearly every aspect of work and life in general. In your opinion, honorable ministers, how public and private sectors will work together to support the digitalization of TVET in African countries through innovative public and private partnership. We would like you to share with us some experience in your country but also we would like to know if you have been able to find an innovative digital solution in your country to ensure remote learning in technical education and vocational training during the lockdown. So please, we will again request you to share some of your experience. So I have the pleasure to call and invite the Honorable Minister, Mrs. Claudette Irere, Minister of State in charge of ICT and Technical Vocational Education and Training of Rwanda. Honorable Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting Rwanda to take part in this colloquium. Having just joined the Ministry of Education this year, that has been challenging to many of our governments, and particularly the education sector, where students have had to spend a very long time out of school, and with all the efforts deployed to ensure the gap of learning is minimized using remote platforms, radios, TVs. This is just our case. I don't know about the others. Most importantly, seeing the TVET students and trainers were not particularly attended to as they should have. Let me just express how refreshing it is to see ADEA initiating this colloquium on DTVET. And I would like to commend them for bringing us together to exchange our best practices, but most importantly, to re-emphasize the need to truly give TVET due attention in the fourth industrial revolution conversation. So to respond to your question, we all recognize the role of the private sector in the TVET development overall, from identification of market needs to curricular development and validation, apprenticeships, industrial attachments, workplace learning, dual training. None of these is done without the private sector playing a crucial role. Private sector in many countries is at the forefront of developing these emerging technologies. Fourth industrial revolution that we're talking about, AI, robotics, and everything else, machine learning. While governments seem to be the ones that are adapting policies to this disruption. In that regard, I'm happy to inform you that Rwanda has just established a Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution in Kigali, which is an affiliate of the World Economic Forum Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution Network. And we believe we will leverage on its gathering power to bring many of the stakeholders on board for the right policy formulation that speaks particularly to TVET. And at a time where automation is slowly taking over, leaving more challenging tasks to humans, as it has been expressed by many, our TVET system should adapt as well and partner with the private sector to deliver on the upcoming demand. Some areas one could look at would be, but are not included, to one, using real-time data, analytics, and systems to identify and predict skills needed on the market, thus helping TVETs to adapt to the needs and changes ahead of time. Secondly, development of digitized learning materials, teaching and learning processes, and pedagogies. One example we could give is our ongoing partnership with SolidWorks, for instance. They're deep diving into our existing curricula and are helping us to identify some of the courses that could be delivered using their 3D experience technology. This will, of course, require that trainers and trainees have the required devices, appropriate training on the platform, and eventually one would expect that at the end of the training, trainees will be able to do much more than just technical work. Third, under the workplace learning policies, we need to be able to develop new forms of professional digital certification programs that would definitely befit the current digitization era that we're in. Of course, we cannot achieve this without well-equipped trainers and trainees that have affordable access to the digital platforms. And indeed, the public-private partnership is needed for a whole overhaul spectrum of TVET training. I'll just stop here for this particular question, and I hope I can come in for further elaboration. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, thank you very much for showing and sharing with us all the work that Rwanda is doing in accordance with digitalization. Thank you very much, and it was very interesting. I would like to invite the Honorable Mohamed Megahed, the Deputy Minister for Technical Education of Egypt. You have the floor.
I'm very pleased. Thank you very much for inviting me. And I will not take much time, but I will share our practices with you in order to just describe the TVET system in Egypt. Egypt is a large country in population. We are here talking about more than 100 million capita. The TVET system, actually, the learners in the TVET system, whether formal or informal, is around 2.6 million learners. 2 million of them are in the Ministry of Education, pre-university education. Actually, we have initiated a strategy just 3-4 years ago, which focused on a number of aspects, which I would say now. Number one, we actually transforming all our curricula into competency-based approach. Content-based is not useful for actually equipping our students with competencies and skills, and that's what the labor market is needing. Now, how many is the size of secondary technical education? What's the size of secondary technical education compared to the entire secondary education? About 60% of the students who finish basic education actually join technical education. We are talking here, those are the 2 million. So this is a good change since TVET education or technical education is considered in many countries, including Egypt, as the second choice of parent. This is actually the situation is becoming better. 5 years ago, it was less than 50% would join technical education. Now, in addition to competency-based approach, we also have established, or about to finish establishing, a quality assurance authority, particularly for TVET, because discovered that the focus here is for the skills acquisition. Of course, we have learned a lot from TVET. In fact, the TVET challenge, we stopped all schools on the 15th of March, and Egypt had some digitization and equipping schools with infrastructure, with digital infrastructure, but this was, I mean, the focus was for general secondary schools, not the technical vocational schools. So the exams are now made in the secondary schools using internet and using also tablets with the students. Of course, this action is very costly. Now we managed to do the exams. We tried to maintain learning after we actually closed the schools. We had platforms, digital platform like Edmodo, in which we have actually been able to hold classes, virtual classes. We have 13 million students and teachers actually attending virtual classes during the pandemic. We managed to innovate on this and ask our students who are not going to school, not being able to hold the assessment exam. We asked them to actually submit research topics, research projects, and this has proven very successful actually. They learned a lot by using internet. We used considerably television and the radio and the newspapers. We have now 3 full-time independent television stations, 1 for basic education, 1 for technical education, and 1 for secondary education, because not all parts of the country are well covered internet. And of course, internet is costly. Even if it is available, they have to pay. Now, the last thing I would say is the involvement of private sector in the TVET education. We actually, a few years ago, we have established a new wave of schools, technical schools, in which we make a partnership with the private sector. We have now 16 of those schools, and we are going ahead adding 10 schools each year until we have about 100 schools in 2030 or maybe more. I will just mention some of the initiatives that we had last year is that led by private sector, they actually have initiated a school this year in artificial intelligence, in digital art, in digital games, in IT, and we hopefully next academic year, we will start a new technical school in partnership between industry and the ministry in fourth industrial revolution. We are talking here about CNC machining via internet. We are talking about also condensed courses of IT. So I would actually advise my colleagues to partnership with private sector, because this is the way that will satisfy their requirements and also it will be high quality. We are heading these schools for international accreditation. Thank you very much for listening.
Honorable Minister, thank you very much for sharing the experience of Egypt, and it is glad to see that we are doing a lot and it's a hope for Africa. Thank you very much. I would like to call Honorable Dr. Gildo Mathias José, the Secretary of State for Professional Technical Secondary Education of Angola. Alors, je vais maintenant passer en français, en attendant que notre représentant de l'Angola puisse résoudre son problème de micro. Et je vais inviter M. Amara Kamate, qui est conseiller technique et qui représente le secrétaire d'État pour l'enseignement technique et la formation professionnelle en Côte d'Ivoire. Monsieur Amara, je vais redonner les questions. Donc, nous savons que dans le cadre de la 4e révolution industrielle, les compétences numériques soutiennent presque tous les aspects de travail et de la vie en général. À votre avis, comment le secteur public et privé pourrait travailler ensemble pour appuyer la digitalisation de l'enseignement technique et de la formation professionnelle dans les pays africains à travers des partenariats publics-privés innovants? Donnez-nous des expériences au niveau de votre pays et également si vous avez une solution digitale innovante pour assurer la formation à distance au niveau de l'enseignement technique et de la formation professionnelle, notamment pendant cette période de confinement, nous serions ravis également de l'entendre. Donc, Monsieur Amara Kamate.
Merci beaucoup, Raki. Je voudrais, au nom du secrétaire d'État, Dr. Brice Kwasi, que j'ai l'insigne honneur de représenter à ce colloque, vous présenter ses excuses. Aussi, me charge-t-il de remercier particulièrement l'ADEA pour cette initiative de ce colloque en cette période de Covid. En ce qui concerne effectivement le partenariat que nous avons eu avec le secteur privé, je voudrais rappeler déjà que notre département ministériel a signé depuis 2009 une convention avec le secteur privé, de sorte qu'aujourd'hui, rien ne s'est fait dans notre département sans l'appui, sans l'aval, sans la caution du secteur privé. De sorte que je voudrais rappeler qu'en cette période de Covid, bien entendu, nous avons eu l'appui du secteur privé. Et bien entendu, en plus de l'appui du secteur privé que nous avons eu, nous comptons, je dis bien, notre département ministériel est en négociation avec un grand groupe asiatique, champion dans le domaine des TIC, en vue de procéder à la digitalisation totale de notre dispositif d'enseignement. Il s'agira de mettre en place un dispositif de communication unifié. Il s'agira aussi de mettre en place une plateforme e-learning et e-class. Ce qui veut dire quoi? Qu'un cours qui est fait dans une classe peut être suivi dans plusieurs autres en temps réel. Il s'agira de mettre en place aussi un logiciel d'administration scolaire qui va gérer les inscriptions, les notes et le suivi des cours. Enfin, l'équipement des établissements en matériel informatique et la mise en place des salles multimédia. Bien entendu, la COVID cette année nous a rappelé qu'aujourd'hui, la digitalisation de l'enseignement technique et de la formation professionnelle, bien entendu, est la bienvenue. Comment est-ce que nous avons pu gérer, bien entendu, assurer la continuité des cours dans cette COVID? Pour assurer la continuité des cours durant la période de COVID-19, une plateforme de formation en ligne à l'intention des apprenants a été déployée, grâce, bien entendu, à notre structure que je salue ici, le Centre de promotion de nouvelles technologies et d'information de CPMT, qui a mis en place cette plateforme, et ça a consisté pour les professeurs à fournir des cours numérisés aux administrateurs de la plateforme en charge pour ces derniers de procéder à leur mise en ligne. Pour les apprenants, il s'est agi de disposer d'un appareil, bien entendu, un ordinateur, des téléphones, des tablettes, d'une connexion Internet pour accéder aux ressources mises en ligne. Grâce à cela, nous avons permis à nos apprenants de continuer leur formation tout en respectant les mesures barrières, ce qui a permis l'achèvement total de nos programmes, et les examens ont pu se dérouler parfaitement avec un pourcentage de réussite au-delà de 80%. Alors, quelles sont les leçons apprises? Il faut retenir que la formation à distance peut être une véritable alternative aujourd'hui à la formation en présentiel. Ces modèles, nous estimons, doivent être pérennisés pour cohabiter avec la formation en présentiel, en ce sens qui permet d'accroître l'accès à notre dispositif. Il est nécessaire également de varier les supports de diffusion car la connexion Internet n'est pas disponible sur l'ensemble du territoire. La question de l'accès aux devises aussi bien pour les apprenants que pour les enseignants constitue un frein à la production et la consommation des ressources. Alors, les défis à relever, nous estimons, c'est 1. La résolution des questions de connectivité sur l'ensemble du territoire, la formation des enseignants de contenu numérique, leur mise en ligne, la mise en œuvre d'une politique volontariste d'accès aux ordinateurs, aux tablettes, aux smartphones en direction des enseignants et des apprenants. Et enfin, le renforcement, j'insiste sur cet aspect, le renforcement de la formation en TIC dans les écoles et le renforcement des capacités des acteurs de l'enseignement technique de la formation professionnelle en matière de TIC. Compte tenu du temps qui nous est imparti, je voudrais juste m'arrêter là et une fois de plus, vous remercie. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, M. Amara Kamaté. Merci de partager l'expérience de la Côte d'Ivoire. Je vois qu'il y a beaucoup de choses qui sont faites et on doit poursuivre les efforts. Merci encore et on est là pour vous soutenir ainsi qu'avec Festo. Merci. Hola, bon dia, Dr. José.
Excelência Senhora Secretária Executiva da ADEA, Excelência Vice-Presidente para a Agricultura, Desenvolvimento Humano e Social do BAD, Excelência Vice-Presidente da Festo para Projetos de Educação Global, Excelência Representantes dos Estados-membros e colegas de painel, caros participantes, antes de mais, agradecer em nome de Sua Excelência, Senhora Ministra da Educação, Professora Luísa Maria Alves Grilo, e do Senhor Secretário de Estado, Gildo Matias, pelo convite para a partilha de informações sobre o ensino técnico profissional em Angola, ao mesmo tempo que felicito a ADEA e a Festo pela iniciativa. A população angolana está estimada em cerca de 32 milhões de habitantes, com cerca de 3.135.635 alunos no ensino secundário, dos quais cerca de 334.604 frequentam o ensino secundário técnico profissional, a maior parte destes em escolas públicas. Assim é, preocupação do Executivo angolano formar jovens com competências técnicas e profissionais para o mundo do trabalho, dando-lhes oportunidades em termos de conhecimento e habilidades que lhes permitam enfrentar as dinâmicas do emprego ou do autoemprego. Com esta visão, a Estratégia Nacional de Formação de Quadros explicitou um universo de 184 profissões estratégicas, sendo 98 de nível superior e 86 de nível médio. De igual modo, encontra-se em execução o Plano de Desenvolvimento Nacional 2018-2022, que contempla importantes programas com impacto direto no ensino e formação técnico-profissional, a dizer, Programa de Melhoria e Desenvolvimento do Ensino Técnico-Profissional, Programa Nacional de Formação e Gestão do Pessoal Docente, Programa de Desenvolvimento do Sistema Nacional de Qualificações e Programa de Reforço do Subsistema Nacional de Formação Profissional, sob coordenação do Ministério da Administração Pública, Trabalho e Segurança Social. Caros participantes, a pandemia da Covid-19 tem dificultado a formação dos jovens, facto que reforça cada vez mais a necessidade dos Estados de implementarem estratégias de digitalização do ensino e da formação para uma maior obtenção das qualificações técnicas e profissionais. Neste quesito, podemos realçar as seguintes práticas adotadas para garantir a continuidade do processo de ensino-aprendizagem de forma remota. A implementação das tele- e radioaulas, em parceria com o Ministério das Telecomunicações e Tecnologia de Informação e Comunicação Social. A criação e implementação da plataforma de ensino à distância, a VITEL, no Instituto Médio de Telecomunicações ITEL, composta por uma secretária eletrônica para o tratamento das atividades administrativas. Menu para a publicação de toda a atividade dos professores e alunos em videoaulas e videoconferência. E um laboratório virtual para animação em 3D. Este projeto será replicado em outras escolas a partir do ano de 2021. Algumas escolas secundárias fazem uso das ferramentas disponíveis Zoom, YouTube, Skype, Google Meeting e o Zoom Meeting, e outras ainda, para as aulas online. Em adição, gostaria de citar aqui algumas ações que têm sido desenvolvidas desde 2018 para melhorar o ensino técnico profissional em Angola, nomeadamente o projeto de revitalização do ensino técnico e de formação profissional, PRETEFOP, financiado pelo 11º Fundo Europeu de Desenvolvimento da União Europeia, que incorpora, entre outros componentes, a concessão e implementação de um sistema de avaliação e garantia da qualidade do ensino técnico e da formação profissional. A identificação de boas práticas internacionais de ensino e aprendizagem e a formação de formadores, metodologias específicas em diferentes áreas disciplinares. O desenvolvimento do sistema de informação e gestão da educação como um instrumento fundamental que permite aferir de forma regular e sistemática a informação estatística. A capacitação de professores nas ferramentas de apoio às aulas, nas modalidades de ensino semipresencial e à distância. Não obstante o engajamento do Executivo angolano no aumento de infraestruturas técnicas e tecnológicas, a escassez de recursos financeiros para assegurar a execução das políticas públicas de educação e ensino, bem como o insuficiente número de recursos humanos qualificados, tem sido o grande constrangimento para atingirmos as principais metas até 2022. Além destes, existem outros condicionalismos que dificultam o uso das tecnologias digitais no processo de ensino-aprendizagem, como o acesso deficitário à energia elétrica, a cobertura e acessibilidade dos meios de comunicação à internet, entre outros. Por esta razão, o o governo pretende continuar a investir nos próximos anos de formas a reduzir essas dificuldades, além de lançar o desafio aos países e instituições aqui representadas que queiram conosco melhorar o ensino técnico profissional e o acesso ao ensino e à educação a cada vez mais pessoas, com cada vez melhor qualidade. Temos a certeza de que todos nós compreendemos que educar é investir no desenvolvimento da ciência e da tecnologia, centrando-se no contexto da digitalização para o desenvolvimento de competências técnicas capazes de qualificar e requalificar a mão de obra para a sua inserção no mercado de trabalho e criação de oportunidades para o desestabelecimento do seu próprio negócio, como resultado direto da conclusão dos cursos de ensino técnico profissional. Enfrentar estas questões implica a adoção de medidas que poderão ajudar na promoção da empregabilidade dos diplomados do ensino técnico profissional. Trata-se de medidas direcionadas para as diferentes variáveis e dimensões assinaladas que carecem de impulso das políticas públicas e que, de certo modo, se encontram identificadas nos documentos de orientação estratégica. Entre essas medidas destacam-se as seguintes: desenvolvimento e implementação do Sistema Nacional de Qualificações, que pretendem definir um quadro nacional de qualificações de Angola, com o respectivo catálogo nacional de qualificações, tendo por base a definição de perfis profissionais e perfis de formação com base em competências. A promoção e intensificação do diálogo público-privado, fomentando a participação, quer na identificação das necessidades de formação, que melhor respondam às necessidades do mercado de trabalho, quer no acompanhamento ativo da própria gestão do sistema e da sua permanente atualização. A intensificação das relações entre a escola e o mundo empresarial, proporcionando o seu conhecimento sobre a oferta formativa existente, assim como contribuindo para o reconhecimento e valorização das competências adquiridas pelo aluno. A qualidade dos diplomados das escolas técnicas é um requisito necessário e obriga a uma aposta no ensino mais prático através da realização de estágios curriculares, com o uso frequente da tecnologia no processo de ensino e aprendizagem. Neste quesito, são ainda identificados problemas que exigem, em alguns casos, um investimento integrado e sustentável em tecnologia, laboratórios, oficinas, equipamentos e materiais de aprendizagem, bem como na formação dos professores e gestores escolares. Por conta disso, reiteramos que, de nossa parte, todo o esforço está a ser feito e continuar a ser feito para suprir as supramencionadas dificuldades. Todavia, não deixamos de lançar o desafio aos países e instituições aqui representadas para juntos atingirmos o nosso desiderado: um ensino técnico profissional digital de qualidade e acessível. Muito obrigado.
Muito obrigado, Excelência. Estamos juntos. Je vais maintenant passer la parole, je reviens en français. Je vais passer la parole à notre dernier panéliste, s'il vous plaît. Restez connectés, on finit très bientôt. Monsieur Khaled Rouhani, qui est le directeur général de la prospective, planification et programmation et qui représente le ministre de la formation professionnelle et de l'emploi de Tunisie. Monsieur Rouhani, vous avez la parole.
Merci à l'ADEA, merci déjà aux panélistes et aux présentateurs donc, pour la richesse des contenus, des illustrations et des exemples. Je vais partir directement donc, pour dire que pour la Tunisie, donc l'idée donc du e-learning et de la formation donc en ligne est un choix donc pour l'avenir. Nous sommes donc partant pour instituer tout un système donc de formation en ligne. Nous allons bâtir donc sur les acquis donc de tout le système éducatif. Nous avons des exemples et des pratiques de formation à distance en université, en enseignement secondaire et en formation professionnelle. Donc, ce n'est pas l'exemple, disons, complet de la formation en ligne, mais c'est une partie donc, qui nous permet de bâtir sur ce système-là. Aussi, tant que faut-il rappeler que la formation professionnelle, donc, elle est bâtie sur le système de l'approche par compétences et qu'actuellement, la formation donc, qui se passe dans les établissements c'est que les établissements de formation donc, sont dotés des équipements, des techniques et pédagogiques, d'un montage pédagogique donc, qui est assimilé à une usine. Donc, une grande part de la formation se fait en pratique donc, dans les centres de formation professionnelle. Passer à une formation donc, en ligne devrait garantir donc, de garder donc, cette qualité de formation et la qualité des compétences. Nous travaillons en partenariat avec le secteur privé donc, dans tout le dispositif de formation et nous comptons donc, faire de ce passage à une formation en ligne, un passage donc, qui garantirait encore donc, la qualité de la formation professionnelle. Donc, en termes stratégiques, en termes d'orientation, nous sommes preneurs donc, pour développer un système donc, de formation en ligne dans le nouveau plan de développement quinquennal 2021 et 2025, donc, qui est bâti sur le principe de la qualité et de garantir la compétence donc, de la formation. Les autres donc, défis sont donc, l'infrastructure donc, qui permettrait donc, de mettre en place cette formation en ligne, de l'Internet, la dotation donc, des jeunes et des familles, donc, des équipements informatiques et des outils donc, pour accéder à cette formation donc, devrait être aussi pris en compte dans notre orientation future. Ce que je noterai donc, suite à ce que j'ai pu donc, suivre dans les différentes présentations, c'est la possibilité de démystifier donc, la formation en ligne. Donc, nous pouvons ici et là partir de plusieurs exemples et de plusieurs donc, initiatives pour dire que nous pouvons donc, dans les pays africains donc, partir des systèmes et non pas seulement des initiatives, mais des systèmes donc, de formation en ligne. Voilà donc rapidement en ces quelques donc, mots que je puisse donc partager donc, cette vision et ces propos avec vous et merci donc pour votre patience.
I check Mr. Rawani. I will now call Executive Secretary, Mr. Albert Nzengi Yumba, to give us a brief closing remarks. Mr. Albert, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Moderator Raki. Let me first apologize. I think we have gone beyond the allocated time, so I'd like to apologize for that. But let me also thank particularly ministers, Minister of States that attended this meeting and who actually shared their perspectives, experience. I think we have learned both from countries, but also from partners. I think we have initiated our journey towards improving peer learning and knowledge exchange, particularly in relation to improving delivery of TVET using digital technology. This is a first of a series of webinars that we'll be organizing until the high-level policy dialogue that we hope will be able to organize in person next year. Thank you again. Thank you to the participant, and sorry again for going beyond the time limits. We hope to correct this next time and make sure that we stick to the allocated time. Thank you again and keep well and wish you well. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you also to all the interpreters, the speakers, and of course our co-organizer, Festo Didactic. Thanks to all the participants who take the time. Thanks also to Honorable Minister and their representative to share with us some key strategies. We have the hope Africa is on the right path in terms of digitalization. So thank you for your support and all the work that is going, that we are collaboratively doing. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup à tous. Bon appétit, très bonne journée. Merci, à bientôt.